Hello everybody. Today I'll be going over the ultimate Sharen build, the easy mode build, which uses the area suppression transcendent module as well as the storm bullet trigger module. The gameplay loop is pretty easy. Like, you only have to use your skill 4, go invis, go back to using your skill 4 multiple times because you get the ambushed passive, which increases your outgoing damage by 15%. Let's go over the modules that we are using on the Descendant. So first we want to max out our cooldown, which we'll use Nimble Fingers, MP Conversion, and then we get further cooldown from Focus on Fusion as well as Focus on Electric. We are also getting electric skill power from Focus on Electric and Fusion skill power modifier from Focus on Fusion. After that, we use frontlines and emergency measures to stack up both the basic amount of critical hit rate as well as critical hit damage, and then skill concentration for the critical hit damage again. And with these mods, we have our basic set of modules set. Beyond that, the skill insight, the ancestor module, and skill expansion are flexible modules. And the area suppression is the transcendent module we'll be using, which modifies our fourth skill into a piercing projectile, continuous damage, as well as a area of effect skill, which with skill expansion covers quite a bit of an area, and each mob you hit or each object that you hit can spawn a storm bullet swirl. And the storm bullet module needs to at least have greater than 45 spawn rate, because this is the trigger module is what makes or breaks this build. You can ignore the power while starting out, but do ensure your spawn rate is greater than 40, because you want to be able to reliably keep spawning the storm bullet swirls around the targets, especially because it does a lot of chunk damage on elites and bosses. Try to get a double gold roll, but if you can't, do prioritize getting the spawn rate as close to 45 as possible. And while we have this, we'll go over how we can be flexible with the skill insight expansion as well as the ancestor module in a bit. But let's go over the rest of the build. We can also see our current skill critical hit rate is at 61.54. So we use our blue beetle to help us with reaching a higher total critical hit rate. Check our skill hit rate now. We got 23% more hit rate from the blue beetle ability, which is Arcane Wave. Every time you use a fusion skill, it grants you arcane energy. The trigger rate for this ability is 100%, duration 10 seconds, and it pushes up your skill critical hit rate by 115% of your base skill critical hit rate, which for Sharen is around 20%. And you don't need to build the blue beetle, but you can just put on sprint cores and a grappling hook charge time on it, firearm tag. Everything else is not really necessary. You don't even need to have modules on the gun. But one thing that is nice to have is remote generator, because this complements an electric descendant. When defeating an enemy and inflicted with electrocution, it inflicts electrocution on the nearby enemies within the 15-meter range of that enemy that just died. Everything else is up to whatever you want to build it. If you want to build it, Defense Master is also nice to have, because it procs on enemy kills. It increases your defense by 130%. Tactical charge is also nice to have if you are switching weapons from, say, a sword, because you want faster movement while traversing. The reactor we'll be going for will be cooldown and skill critical hit damage, And as for the external components, you can go with pretty much whatever depending on your end system module role and what you want to go for. If you want to maximize damage, you can go for the Slayer set. I'm here, however, using two sets with two parts each. One is the Ascending Armory set, the other is the Enlightened Mage set, because I want the skill power and I want skill cost reduction because of the AM I actually use. Next we can go to the Arche tuning. The Arche tuning will look like this. We want to get as much skill power, some cost reduction, skill effect range, the cooldown node, and the mutant cell you can use is either electric cohesion, because this will help when you are doing activities that have plenty of mobs, because you can stack up 3, which comes out to be around 19% electric skill power boost that you get, and you can keep reprocking it while you have the waves of enemies coming every kill. Once you've got the 3 stacks, you can keep refreshing the timer. The other one mutant cell that you can use is the electric chain catalyst. This instead of like boosting your electric skill power, it reduces the enemy's skill power resistance. I'll recommend like for most players, I think cohesion is good enough. And for inversion, we'll again invest into cost reduction, because like we want to be able to spam our loop of like spamming the 4th skill, going invis, coming out of invis, then going back to spamming 4th. The rest, the recovery node depends on what players want. Survival also depends on what player want. But if you are somehow like very well on your cost management, you can swap out the cost node for the movement bonus. Now in the next section, I'm going to go into detail how we can manage our flexible mods, which is the skill inside the end system module, as well as the skill expansion. This will depend on how much critical rate we can juggle between what we have on our end system module and how much we want to settle for. Do we want to hit the max cap of like 100% skill critical hit rate? How to get that? What combinations would get us to that? This is what I'm going to cover up next. Yeah, now before we begin doing the calculations for what crit level we want to target and like what combination of ancestor module stats do we want, we'll first of all throw out all our flexible modules, which is a skill insight, assassin's resolution, anything that is adding critical rate or critical damage. We'll also remove front lines and emergency measures. We'll establish what our base critical rate is. So our base critical hit rate is 20%. Now 20% plus whatever we'll get from holding Blue Beetle due to its ability, which is going to be roughly 23%. So let's go back to that, and let's also open up a calculator. How is the additional 23% coming from the Blue Beetle? We'll just calculate that. So 20 is our base critical rate, and Blue Beetle's ability is 105%, or this can be written as 1.15 times base critical hit rate, which for Sharen is 20%. So this becomes into 20, which is 23. That's how we are getting the bonus exact 23% total crit rate from the Blue Beetle, and 20 is our base, so we end up as 43 without any of the crit mods that we had. Now we'll add our front lines and emergency measures. Whereas So if you look at the stats, we have got 92.3% from these two mods that we added. If you go back to the calculator, so it will be 20 into 0.92.3, 18.46. So it becomes 20 plus 23 plus 18.46, 61.46 that we'll have as of now. Let's go back and just check it. 61.46, that's as per our calculations. So what we are missing still is, to max out right now, we are missing 39.54 is what we are missing. So the multiple we need is 39.54 divided by our base critical hit rate. 1.977 is the total we need, minimum we need to maximize our critical hit rate with all the additional mods. So this can be read as 197%. So let's go back to our character and see what combinations we can have. So we can, out of the 197, we can get insight. We can get 115 from skill insight, and after that we can get say, let's see if I have any 100 critical hit rate modules. We have a 210 one which we will use for a test case later. Skill critical hit rate, yeah, okay. So we have 115 there, 101 over here hit rate. Ignore critical hit damage and every other perk right now. We are just trying to hit the max cap of the hit rate. So that's one way to get it. Let's check what we have. Our default skill hit rate as is, with the insight and well as the ancestor module with a 101 critical hit rate. We use our blue beetle, which gives us plus 23. We exceed, we have already reached the cap. Now if we want to be flexible, what we can do here else is remove skill insight. If we want to, like, we can ignore skill expansion for now. If we want to remove skill insight, and like our ancestor mod needs to have a minimum critical hit chance of 197%, so that we can entirely skip having to put skill insight. And we have such one such module. Let me see. Yeah, skill critical hit rate 210%. If we put that in here, let's go back to our character. We are at 80.54%, plus the blue beetle 23%. We'll exceed the cap. Let's just go test it anyway. We have exceeded the cap. So that's one way where you get this as a freebie. Now here we weren't using any HP module, so you could slot in a HP module with, if you have something with like a minimum of 197% critical hit rate, because that just pushes you at this hit rate cap. So we could just go HP, whatever module, whether you want to put increased HP, or if you want to sacrifice MP, you could go for stem accelerant. What else you could also do is you could go for something that adds more damage, whether that could be one interesting mod for electric descendants is ferromagnet. Landing a piercing. Yeah, this is not just for electric descendants. This matches the ability type piercing projectile type skill for Sharen. When landing a piercing movement speed, you get a slight debuff to movement speed, but the electric skill resistance gets reduced, and you get an electric skill power boost as well. Plus, I have not actually leveled it up. This probably the buffs are actually higher once you actually level it up. But here, yeah, so you've got a free slot here. If you manage to find an SS2 module with at least, let's go back to a calculator, yeah, 197.7 skill critical hit rate, you can bypass needing a skill insight to hit the cap. But in the ancestor module, you do not necessarily want to say go with a like your focus should be skill critical hit damage, and like your priority should be skill critical hit damage and say fusion skill power boost ratio. On the negatives, you can even have duration as a negative. What you don't want as a negative is cooldown, because cooldown screws up your skill rotations, and you don't want to like invest in either like you don't want to like change your external components or like change your blue beetle to something that gives you more cooldown. We already have cooldown on Reactor. We already have the cooldown node on what do you call it? The Arche tuning as well. So here, you do not want your essence model to have negative as cooldown. Dimension skill modifier, because the skills we do not actually do any damage with, the invis as well as the third skill we are actually not going to be using. So you can have as big of a negative on the dimension skill modifier, dimension skill power boost ratio. We are not affected at all. You can also have HP as a negative, but like if you're not going to use an HP module because of not hitting the skill rate otherwise, so be careful with the HP negative. You can have duration as a negative, because we do not actually care about duration, because the duration impact here is only the electrocution, the like damage over time of the skill. It'll just go back to 3 seconds, because it and invisibility is also not going to be affected, because the baseline stays the minimum, the 10 seconds, and the electrocution will just go back to 3 seconds maximum, depending on what duration negative we get. The other aspect is the cooldown. Yeah, the skill critical hit rate is important here, because if you get a skill critical on her fourth with the AD suppression module, your cooldown immediately goes to 1 second. So if your skill hit rate is not 100%, you will eventually notice moments where you can't instantly spam the skill because it's on a cooldown we have managed to reach 2.6 seconds. But if you keep getting the chain critical hits, you won't notice it, because the cooldown will match with the skill animation, the jump and the flip she does, and that you won't notice. You'll be able to spam the skill, but the moment you miss it, the cooldown goes to 2.6 seconds. So the other combination is, you want to not rely on getting like 197.7% skill hit rate on the ancestor. You want a mix of like say skill insight. This is the 105 out of the total we need, and then you can see if something with like skill critical hit damage, skill critical hit 100. Yeah, this still adds up, and this is like a nice module. The only negative is the duration. We do not care about duration. Let's just apply it. Yeah, we lost the additional duration we had. It's the electrocution duration just 3 seconds. The invisibility is still the baseline 10 seconds. Nothing impacted. But our overall crit rate with skill insight and this module has become the baseline we need, 197. It has exceeded that, so we'll go back. Yeah, our baseline skill critical hit rate is higher than we had before. It's 80.1, and once you use blue beetle, it'll exceed the cap. It'll hit the cap 100. So here, what you can do, you also do not need to emphasize your priority should be skill critical hit damage, and which is what I usually run with, is a module like this. I have a pretty shit luck with ancestor modules, and this is the highest critical hit damage mod that I've managed to get. It has a like the bonus of duration up, which doesn't really matter. Like if I apply this, the duration for execution goes to 4.1 seconds, and the duration for invis goes a bit higher, but we do not really care because we want to turn invis and immediately spam our fort. Go back to spamming our fort because we get the ambush passive. Outgoing damage increase when attacking non-target in 15% plus. This is not multiplicative, this is just flat 15% damage bonus. And yeah, it does have a cooldown, but that's yeah. So this has a negative of skill cost, which is why I have built my external component set around like getting a skill cost benefit with the ascending armory set, and my Arche tuning also has some skill cost factors into it. As my basic inversion is also using a skill cost node. But for the ascendant module, for instead of skill expansion is also not as necessary, but the more area you cover, the more mobs you can hit, the more storm bullet swirls you can spawn on individual targets. So that's the reason I have put skill expansion. But yeah, you can swap out skill expansion regardless of all the crit rate math, and you can put something that increases damage, like the ferromagnetic thing I added, or something that adds like skill power, or like fusion skill power, or skill modifier, whatever happens. You can swap that out as well if you don't need it, or you can get the range from the inversion as well. I think there is one for there's a range node as well. But yeah, so that's the math for like how to reach the skill cap, skill crit rate cap through the combination of skill insight and your flexibility, which the ancestor model brings you. But yeah, at the end of the day, you want to focus for your priority should be skill critical hit damage as high as it can be, with like the other beneficial stat to have is not duration, is not ideally cooldown because we are getting the cooldown anyway, but cooldown is still nice to have. The other priority should be fusion skill power boost, because that along with skill critical hit damage will actually like add on to the damage, because our fourth skill is fusion. It could be a very high electric skill power boost as well, but the fusion will be better as well because it matches our exact skill. And the negative should never be cooldown, because that will just screw up our rotation. Because if we end up not hitting, if you aren't at the critical hit cap, it is going to screw down our overall cooldown. But if you are hitting the what do you call it, the critical hit cap, you can have it as a negative as well, but still not too high for the cases when you don't actually get a critical hit. Yeah, you can have a duration as the negative, that is fine. And yeah, that's all for the flexible slots, and we'll cover up the math section of the video. And lastly, the fellow we are going to be using is the MP fellow, because we are going to be spamming our skills. It'll be best. It's best suited to have the MP fellow. And lastly, I'm just going to leave in some gameplay videos with the build. Thank you for watching, and if this video helped you, and if the crit rate math especially helped you, if you are a new player or a returning player, do consider liking the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing. We will be demoing a solo breach tracking operation with our build.
You won't find me. Unseen. Entering stealth state. Activating stealth. Initiating stealth. Unseen. Activating stealth. Entering stealth.
That's a special mob.
Unseen. Entering stealth state. Activating stealth. Initiating stealth operation.
On elites and mini bosses, Storm Bullet does a lot of the carrying.
You won't find me.
Versus having to just keep doing the 4 skill over and over.
Activating stealth. Entering stealth. You won't find me. Activating stealth. You won't find me. Unseen. Entering stealth. Activating stealth. Initiating stealth operation. Unseen. You won't find me. Initiating stealth operation. Unseen. Activating stealth. You won't find me. Initiating stealth operation. Entering stealth. Unseen. You won't find me. Activating stealth. Initiating stealth operation. Activating stealth. Initiating stealth. I'm getting cockier. You won't find me. Activating stealth. You won't find me.
That's all Storm Bullet do the carrying there. Six-minute run. Around 2 billion damage dealt. If I can only stop screwing up some of the jumps that I do, kind of like the transition from one zone to the other. This is going to be a solo run of Forbidden Sanctuary.
Activating. You won't find me.
Sharen's forward skill can take this guy's shield down pretty quick as well.
Initiating
Yep,
stealth.
he's lost the buff as well.
Entering
Just gotta
stealth state.
not get locked out of abilities. This debuff.
Activating stealth.
Because I think once you get hit with this, those yellow
Initiating.
you get a debuff which limits, like stops your ability usage for like 60 or 45 seconds.
Activating stealth. You won't find me. Unseen.
We also picked up the no MP consumption power from the insect mob. Like so.
Unseen. Activating stealth. Unseen.
Just gotta be careful of the door there, because if you aren't careful, the mobs will rush in and they'll replenish their health, which did happen there.
Activating stealth. Shields are down. You won't find me. Unseen. You won't find me. Initiating
Mini-boss.
stealth. Entering stealth state. Activating stealth. Entering stealth state. Activating. Entering stealth state. You won't find me. Activating stealth. You won't find me. Initiating stealth inversion. Unseen. Initiating stealth inversion. Unseen. Activating stealth. Unseen. Entering stealth. Activating stealth. Initiating stealth inversion. Unseen. Activating stealth. Unseen.
That was nice of them to just walk into my storm bullet versus running out of it. Final boss.
Entering stealth state. Activating stealth. Entering stealth state. Unseen. Initiating stealth operation.
Look at how much chunk of health a single storm bullet can take away, as long as the boss stays within it, because this boss likes to move a lot. And that was it. Around 5 minutes of a run, and like rather comfortable. The pickups that we get, which like do not consume our MP for like a minute or so, that makes it all the more fun with Sharen, because you can just turn your brain off and just keep spamming her fourth skill.